right, before we get started with today's devotion, you don't want to miss next week. We're going to be doing a week-long study on the book of Esther, and Monday I have a very special guest singer that's going to sing a song for you, a brand new song that's going to help you connect with Esther before the study begins. There's no need to read ahead. I'm going to give you a reading assignment each day before we do our study the next day. And it's a short book, but Esther is such a powerful book. It's filled with the precepts, the timeless precepts that God has for our lives today. And it has rags to riches, it has villain, it has a heroine. So it's a very exciting book, and I'm excited about this study and all that we're going to learn together. Enjoy today's devotional. Hey, it's Tina at Dirt Road Believer. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm going to start today with a riddle. What can fit between your two fingers, but the weight of it can absolutely crush you? If you looked at the title of today's devotion, then you've already answered it. It is anxiety. Anxiety all starts right here, but anxiety can absolutely get you to the point that you cannot function. Your body begins to break down because of anxiety. So, anxiety can be such a giant in our lives, but really, it's only about this big. So I want us to think about that today. Let me just take you through just a few moments of anxiety that can come on this fast, and before you know it, you're kind of in a place that you never expected to be. Whether you have a teenage child or not, just picture that you do, and it's a Friday night, you're in your happy place reading your book or watching your favorite TV show, and you look at the clock and it's a couple of minutes before their curfew, and you start thinking, okay, they'll be home soon. Well, next few seconds it's they are in so much trouble, and then you think, well, they've never been late before, and they did ride with that girl that had a fender bender 6 months ago, and oh, they had to go over the ridge to get home. I bet, oh my gosh, they've gone off the ridge. And before you know it, within less than 5 minutes, without even picking up the phone to check on your child, you are picking out what song would be best at their funeral. I mean, we really don't need the devil's help with anxiety, because we do this all on our own. We can spin and write the end of a story in the most negative of ways, and get ourselves in a place where the anxiety is just disabling when everything was going to turn out okay to begin with. So anxiety stems from what we imagine is going to happen, not what actually happens. When there's an uncertain outcome, as humans, we don't like that lingering, well, what could happen? So we always, whether we do it consciously or not, we are writing the end of the story. And that doesn't always go positively. That's why we need God's help rewriting anxiety. You know, in Romans 12:2, this is a very popular verse. It says, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Anxiety stems from the mind, and we know that anxiety is definitely a pattern of this world. So we need to renew our minds. And how are we going to do that? Let's look over at 2 Corinthians chapter 5. I'm going to start in verse 17. Paul wrote this to the Corinthian church. The Corinthian church was a very mature church, and but they had let some false teachers slip in among them. And this is what Paul says to the Corinthian church. "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation, that God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God." And that word reconciled And for us to be a new creation, we have to reconcile our thoughts to God. When we're writing the end of that story, that uncertain outcome in our life, we have to do it with God. We can't do it without God, because see, God's ending will always include victory. It will always include increase, happiness, health. God doesn't write any other endings. Victory is his ending. So as we begin to go through that thought process, it's kind of a skill, and it's a skill I want to teach my kids too, that when you have that lingering ending that you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out, you need to write the ending with God. Be prayerful about it, because I promise you, if you consult him on the ending and you're writing it together, then it's always going to be a good ending, and it's going to save you a lot of anxiety and heartache in between. If you can see that ending and believe on what God has for that ending, there is no anxiety. The Corinthian church was a mature church. I think there's a big misconception that mature Christians don't have anxiety. They don't get anxiety. That could not be further from the truth. And Thursday, I'm going to show you someone in the Bible, one of the most powerful, godly men in the entire Bible, who struggled with extreme anxiety, almost to the point of death. And I'm also going to share a struggle that I had years ago with anxiety that I became unable to function in a lot of ways because of it. So rewriting anxiety, that gets me fired up. I hope it gets you fired up, because there's some endings we need to rewrite, because God does not write the endings the way we do. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It was good to be with you. And if you like this, if you know of someone who's struggling with anxiety right now, it's as easy as sharing it with them. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I appreciate all my Dirt Road believers out there who are tuning in and who are listening out for what God has for them. Thank you so much. And hey, until Thursday, slow down and take the Dirt Road, believer.